world fell in love with a smile. But no one ever asked what it cost. His laughter filled living rooms. His voice lit up the dreams of a generation. Yet behind that grin, behind the shimmering lights, the applause, the glitter, there lived a boy who never had the chance to simply be one. A child molded into perfection. A man tested by silence, faith, and fire. This is not just the story of fame. This is the story of survival. Of Donny Osmond, the boy who sang to the world while his own heart quietly broke. Introduction. Music swells. Nostalgic strings blend with the echo of a vintage TV jingle. Donny Osmond. Not just a legend. Not just a name carved into the history of American entertainment, but the heartbeat that pulsed beneath it. He wasn't born into privilege or luxury. He was born into harmony. A seventh child in a home that worshipped both faith and music. December 9th, 1957. Ogden, Utah. A modest house filled with more love than money and more sound than silence. His parents, George and Olive Osmond, were builders, not of empires, but of voices. His father, a veteran turned salesman, believed in the discipline of hard work. His mother, a woman of grace and relentless faith, believed that harmony was next to holiness. Two of his brothers, Verl and Tom, were born deaf. So the family didn't just hear music, they felt it. They learned to sing not just with their voices, but with their hands, their hearts, and their hope. For Donny, that was the beginning. He sang louder, not because anyone told him to, but because he wanted his brothers to feel what he could hear. That's how he learned what music really was. Not sound, but connection. At 5 years old, that connection would lift him from the quiet streets of Utah to the glaring lights of national television. The Osmond brothers, Alan, Wayne, Merrill, and Jay, had already charmed audiences with their wholesome harmonies on The Andy Williams Show. One day, a producer looked at the youngest boy in the wings and asked, "Can he sing?" Donny stepped forward, a microphone taller than his small frame, the studio heat buzzing around him. And then, with a voice too pure for the chaos of the world, he sang, "You are my sunshine." The crowd erupted. A smile bloomed across his face, one that would become a symbol for innocence, hope, and the dream of a gentler America. That was the moment the world met Donny Osmond. That was also the moment he lost something he never knew he'd miss: his childhood. Best moments. Soft piano, a reflection of golden light on a young face. Fame didn't arrive like dawn. It came like a flood. By the time Donny turned 12, he wasn't just a performer. He was a phenomenon. One bad apple hit #1, and suddenly the Osmonds were everywhere. Lunchboxes, magazines, cereal boxes. America's perfect family. Clean-cut, faithful, smiling. And yet, in the quiet between rehearsals, he sat alone. Every applause echoed like a chain. Every spotlight blurred the line between the boy he was and the icon he was told to be. When asked years later what his childhood was like, he didn't mention games or parties. He said, "I performed for adults." That was his youth. Rehearsals instead of recess, microphones instead of friends. His life had become an endless set list of expectation. But he endured, because that's what good sons did. Because his family's dream was now his duty. And somewhere, within that discipline and devotion, something miraculous took shape. A performer who could turn fear into rhythm, who could make millions believe again in innocence. That was Donny's gift, and his burden. All situations, full story. The boy who sang to make others feel had now become the voice of a nation. By 1972, Puppy Love swept across the charts. Donny Osmond was America's sweetheart, the boy every parent adored. and every teenage girl dreamed about. But the sweetness of fame has a bitter aftertaste. He was forbidden from being ordinary. No parties, no rebellion, no mistakes. "You're the clean-cut Mormon boy," they said. "You're America's good son." His faith, his upbringing, his family's values, all were now painted across the giant canvas of pop culture. To the world, he was perfection. But perfection is a cage, one lined with applause and loneliness. While others his age flirted under bleachers, Donny rehearsed under hot studio lights. While others kissed in secret, he bowed before cameras. And every time his voice cracked, they called it discipline. Every time his smile faltered, they called it humility. But no one saw the exhaustion behind the charm. He once confessed, "I didn't have a youth, I had a career." And that career demanded everything. The Osmonds' fame had become a phenomenon. By the mid-70s, the Donny and Marie Show transformed them into television royalty. Every Friday night, millions tuned in to watch the brother-sister duo sparkle on stage. The perfect blend of humor, harmony, and heart. But perfection takes its toll. Behind the camera, Donny was fading. 12-hour rehearsals, endless interviews, photo shoots that stretched into dawn. "When the red light came on, I turned on too," he said. "When it went off, I didn't know who I was." Fame, once thrilling, became suffocating. The smile he wore so easily had turned into armor. The world called him pure. Critics began to call him boring. The same virtue that once defined him was now his downfall. They mocked the clean-cut boy who had once given them hope. And the cruelest irony? He was punished for being exactly who they told him to be. One night, long after filming, he lingered on an empty soundstage. The seats that once overflowed with laughter now stood empty. He whispered into the void, "Is this what love sounds like when it's gone?" No answer came, only the hum of the lights and the echo of his own breath. But Donny Osmond did not vanish. He endured. He kept showing up. Even when the world stopped cheering, he sang. Not for fame, but to remember who he was. Because the stage, for him, wasn't just a spotlight. It was sanctuary. Then came the fall. When the Donny and Marie Show ended in 1979, so did the family's fortune. Bad investments, overextended tours, it all collapsed. Nearly $20 million in debt. The smiling boy America loved was now a man with bills he couldn't pay and a legacy on the brink. He performed in small clubs, county fairs, and forgotten casinos just to keep the lights on. He was mocked, labeled a has-been, but still, he showed up. "The applause used to lift me," he said. "Now, it keeps me standing." He learned that sometimes the climb back isn't toward the stage. It's toward yourself. The love that saved him. In the chaos of fame, one face remained constant. Debbie Glenn, the cheerleader from Utah who saw the boy behind the spotlight. They met as teenagers. He was already a star. She was the girl who didn't care. For years, he watched her from afar, convinced she'd never see him as anything more than a headline. When he finally asked her out, she said yes, and history changed. Their dates were secret. Their love was quiet, sacred, untouched by the flash of cameras. And in May 1978, Donny did what no one expected. He married her. The reaction was brutal. Fans called it betrayal. Magazines screamed heartbreak. Radio hosts joked that America had been dumped. He lost half his fan base overnight. Debbie received threats and hate mail. But through it all, they held hands and refused to let go. "She saved me," he said years later. "When fame forgot me, she remembered." They built their first home from love, not luxury. Their first son, Donny Jr., was born in a tiny Utah house filled with the sound of lullabies and laughter instead of applause. When his fortune vanished, she reminded him that family was worth more than fame. When his faith wavered, she whispered, "Love doesn't need you perfect. It just needs you present." Those words became his anchor. And when he released Soldier of Love in 1989, anonymously, to hide from the bias of his own name, Debbie was the first to recognize it on the radio. She called him, crying. "It's you," she said. "You're back." The song climbed the charts, restoring not just his career, but his spirit. They raised 5 sons, built a home rooted in humility, and weathered storms that fame could never prepare them for. He once said, "People talk about my comeback, but the real miracle is that she stayed." The years of loss, fame faded. Life grew quieter. But grief has a voice all its own. His mother, Donny Osmond, passed away. She was more than a mother. She was the rhythm behind the harmony, the unseen hand that guided every note. He was performing when the call came. He finished the show, then whispered to the crowd, "The song has ended, but the melody will never die." In the dressing room later, he stared at her picture and felt the silence settle around him like ash. For the first time, there was no one left to call him "my boy." Then, in 2007, his father, George, passed. The man who had built him through discipline and duty was gone. Donny kept his father's ring, heavy, simple, engraved with service, around his neck. Every night, he would hold it and whisper, "Am I still marching right, Dad?" As years passed, more silence came. Verl's stroke, Meryl's illness, and then Wayne, his brother, his mirror, his harmony, gone at 73. At Wayne's memorial, Donny sang "Puppy Love" one last time. An empty mic stood beside him, a candle for the brother who used to stand to his right. He let the final note hang in the air, trembling, unfinished. That was their song's goodbye. "Each brother gone," he said, "feels like another verse cut from the song of my life." But he didn't stop singing. Because grief didn't take his music, it only changed its key. The battle within the body that had carried him through 6 decades of dance, movement, and music finally betrayed him. A spinal misalignment, numbness spreading through his legs. And then, nothing. He couldn't walk. The man who had commanded stages now lay paralyzed in a hospital bed. Doctors warned him the damage might be permanent. He wondered, if I can't move, can I still be me? Debbie stayed beside him through every hour. Nights became prayers whispered between machines. Her voice, steady, soft, became the rhythm that kept him alive. Physical therapy was agony. But he treated each small victory like a standing ovation. The first twitch of a toe. The first time he stood unaided. The first step, shaky, imperfect, but real. "I didn't hear angels," he said, "just Debbie crying." By summer 2020, he returned to the stage. Slower, yes, but stronger, not in body, but in soul. He told the audience, "Strength isn't about standing tall, it's about standing again after you've fallen." And as the lights hit his face, the world saw not a perfect idol, but a survivor reborn. Legacy and peace. Now, at 67, Donny Osmond stands not beneath the blaze of fame, but beneath the quiet glow of gratitude. He lives in St. George, Utah, where the desert sunsets stretch like symphonies across the horizon, where silence, once his enemy, has become his friend. He walks with a limp sometimes. His spine aches on cold mornings, but he smiles, because every ache is a reminder that he's still here. He sings not for fame, but for faith. Not for applause, but for love. 6 decades. 60 albums, thousands of shows, and a legacy that now glows beyond the glitter. A legacy of endurance, humility, and heart. As of 2025, his life is measured not in dollars or headlines, but in gratitude, in family, in peace, in the laughter of his 14 grandchildren echoing through the halls of a home built on the quiet triumph of love that lasted. Cinematic outro. Call to action. Music rises. Strings and piano intertwine with the echo of a distant crowd. He was the boy who sang so his deaf brothers could feel. The man who sang so the world could believe. And the survivor who sings today to remind us all. No silence lasts forever. If you've ever been touched by his voice, if you've ever found hope in his story, then honor the journey. Like, subscribe, share his song. Because Donny Osmond's story isn't just about music, it's about harmony through heartbreak. And as long as his voice lives, the melody will never die.